Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to this week's Breakfast with Boom. I'm your host, MrBooMStickXL, and wow, did I get together one heck of a panel, but also put together one of the most saltiest, I think, bunch of titles and topics I've ever put together. It's going to be a fun show. It's going to be very interested. And of course, there's going to be a lot of opinions added to each one of these topics. Now, I want to get into the introduction so we can get right into this rocket fire show that I have planned for you today. First up, we have a community member that exemplifies what it means to be a fantastic person on and off social media. He's a chainsaw cutting assassin. He's a huge Xbox fan. He doesn't like scary games, but will watch someone else play, and also have the sound muted while watching, which I don't understand that. This is going to be his last show on Breakfast with Boom as a permanent panel member, because now he has joined the Xbox Factor podcast, but he will guest appear time and every now and again in the future. Please welcome Zemi Games.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is definitely my last show on Breakfast with Boom, but I will be back as a guest later on. Whenever Boom needs me, whenever the call goes out, I will definitely be coming back. Thank you so much, Boom, for that fantastic intro. You always kill it with your intros, man. I love it. And can't wait to get to the show. All these topics. Oh my God, man, the topics. Like, I'm super pumped.
I'm glad that you're here, and yes, the topics are going to be a lot of fun. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, it's all about talking games, and, when you talk about games, there's speculation, there's theories, and of course, everyone has their own opinion, which you have to respect. It may not be your opinion, and that is okay, and that's why we do these shows. So let's get into the next panel member. We have a creator of the awesome BitCloud Gaming YouTube channel. He's a die-hard gamer obsessed with gaming and appreciates the great worlds, characters, and villains he meets in every game he plays. He's the host of the outstanding Real Gamer Talk podcast, co-host to the Gamer Couch podcast, and a permanent member of the Scumcast and Hashtag Spectres. Please welcome BitCloud Gaming.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How you guys doing? It's definitely going to be a good show, and I'm hyped for these topics because, especially since David's here, so it's going to be some fireworks.
Oh yeah, well the fireworks. Someone is standing by, so I can give them the cue so they can rocket explode them. But let's continue on to the next guest panel member. We have a gamer whose passion for the Mass Effect series has no equal. He considers himself a sarcastic Brit, but I think he's just trying to be funny. He's a die-hard gamer who loves Xbox and a community member that is always looking for the next big gaming story to share, and the creator of the outstanding The Elusive Gamer YouTube channel that is on the cusp of 1,000 subscribers. Please welcome Jamie Moran.
Hey, thanks, man. It's great to be on. Haven't been on in a while, and I'm really looking forward to some of these topics because some of them in particular I really want to talk about. So let's get into it.
Well, thanks for being here, dude. And yes, it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, I saved him for last because his intro is as ridiculous and long as one deserves. I have the absolute pleasure of introducing a lord that exemplifies what it means to be a platinum member. He's the king of statues with more comic knowledge than an entire comic encyclopedia, a retro gamer who knows a thing or two about wheeling and dealing thanks to the master known as Grandfather. He has now been promoted to the muscle for Phil Dominus Maximus Spencer. I call him brother. You can call him your highness. Please welcome King David from the Iron Lords podcast.
Boom, I love you. My man, I love you. Oh man, that was fantastic. Oh, let's go. I'm so sorry last week. I messed up. I truly messed up. But I'm so happy to be here today, especially with these topics that we have here. And my man, Big Cloud, is here. Yeah, baby.
So, well, listen, dude, it's great to have you here. And obviously, I run a family first podcast, and I really do mean that. When people, can't be here when they're scheduled because they have something going on with their family, well, guess what? It's just a podcast, and like I said, family does come first. But let's get into the first topic. Now, this one, because it's the month of Halloween, one of my favorite holidays of the entire year, I kind of wanted to bring up a horror game. Now, I know Zemi may not be into it, but he always has the opinions that are well described. So earlier this month, Capcom released some gameplay trailer for the mysterious Project Resistance, and now Resident Evil 3 remake speculations has the rumors have begun to reignite by Easter eggs found concerning Project Resistance. Now, during the saves room, there's a very similar music that's being played in the background, and it sounds a lot like the tunes from Resident Evil 3. What's more interesting, though, is that Project Resistance timeline takes place between Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3. Now, at the beginning of 2019, there were some big-time rumors posted on the 4chan forums from a notorious Capcom and Resident Evil leaker known as Anonymous One, who was the first one to post any information about Resident Evil 2 Remake, and that Resident Evil 3 was in fact in active development, but that Capcom themselves were not actually doing the remake. Now, according to Anonymous One, the title, which is smaller in size to Resident Evil 2 Remake that was released early in 2019, was being given to an outside developer who in the past has done remakes for other big-name titles. Now, as of this show, there's been no official announcement for Resident Evil 3 Remake or who was doing it. Now, I'm going to say this. I, for one, have zero doubts that Resident Evil 3 is in fact being remade in the same vein as Resident Evil 2. But here's the thing. If I were a betting man, I would guess that the team behind Shadow of the Colossus remake, Bluepoint, would be an outstanding team to bring us a modern-looking and playing version of Resident Evil 3. So now I'm going to get into the question for the panel. And Pixelbit, I know that you loved Resident Evil 2. And in fact, for me personally, it's still my game of the year for 2019. What are your thoughts about the Easter eggs I talked about being that showed up in Project Resistance? And more importantly, would you like to see a Resident Evil 3 remake launch early next year in the same vein of RE2?
Come on, Boom. Is this really a question? Come on, bro. Resident Evil 2 remake was absolutely outstanding. It's one of the best remakes we got in this generation by far. Loved it. Resident Evil 3, I've been wanting that since the ending of Resident Evil 2. I've wanted that since day one. So, I can't wait to see what they're going to do next year, especially if they're going to keep this for next gen. With the new controllers we're going to be getting with the haptic feedback and whatnot.
Yes.
That'd be cool to incorporate those type of features into the game. But something tells me they'll probably remaster even the Resident Evil 2 remake for next gen or patch them, some abilities into that. So, we'll see. But I've been hyped for that since the ending of Resident Evil 2. That's been my main game I've just been really looking forward to from Capcom.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it did very well for them. I mean, look, I understand that what I have to say about the way Capcom has been killing it. I mean, they have really... This is a company, and I've talked about this on numerous podcasts before. A lot of people don't understand how on the ropes Capcom as a company was in 2016. They were really on the cusp of going bankrupt, filing for bankruptcy in Japan because, they hadn't had a hit in a while. And 2017 comes, Resident Evil 7 gets released, and it turned the entire company around, and they've been hitting bomb after bomb after bomb. And what I like is the two-prong attack that they're doing. There are a lot of older gamers that are listening right now that remember playing on the PlayStation 1, right? That that remember Resident 1, Resident 2, Resident 3, Code Veronica on the Nintendo of all places, right? On the GameCube. right? I'm sorry, the Dreamcast. I'm sorry, it was on the Dreamcast, and then we got the remake of Resident Evil 1 on a Nintendo system. The way Capcom is doing it now, where they're giving us, the classic Resident Evil fans, these over-the-shoulder third-person remakes and still continuing the series, which I believe I've read that Resident Evil 8 is going to continue in the same vein. So it's going to be first-person, and it's going to continue the story. But they're giving us both, and I think that is freaking amazing.
Yeah, do you think it's kind of a cop-out, though? Them going back to the originals and just remastering them?
No, I actually don't, because I think they're, okay, the reason why I don't is not because I'm just a fanboy, because I am a Resident Evil freak. I'm going to tell you that right now. That's my number one game of my entire gaming 40-plus year career, Resident Evil 2. And I think that those games that came out in 98 and just, worked their way into the 2000s, there are a lot of gamers today who like horror that never experienced those. And they're not going to go back and they're not going to play Resident 1 the way it was on the PlayStation. They're not going to play Resident 2 the way it was on the PlayStation, and so on and so forth. So by Capcom revisiting the classics, bringing them back in modern age graphics and controls, the younger gamers, the younger generation that enjoys horror games, which you got to remember, they're not that many. It's not a big genre. Horror is very small, and Capcom allowing these classics to be remastered, I think, is big for the industry.
Yeah, they got so many other games they can choose from too. That's the crazy thing.
I mean, we've talked about that before. You want a Dino Crisis, I want an Animusha. I mean, there's really so much they can go. And
Mega Man, if I remember correctly.
Mega Man 2, yeah, a remake of Mega Man would be great. Yeah, it's.
So they got so many games they can definitely just dip their fingers in and grab and remake and make better. Hell, they even knocked out the part with their latest Devil May Cry. So
yes, going back to the well and actually continuing the series, which is something that's never been done before. They rebooted the series and then said, okay, the reboot didn't work, even though I liked it. They went back and made 5, which has been a hit, and in Game Pass, OPS, by the way, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, so that's really, really good. They've done good in those regards. And that just goes to show what happens when you make quality games versus just games that just weren't engaging at all.
Yes.
I mean, you guys remember Resident Evil 6? Oh, my God.
It was terrible. I didn't beat it. It's the only Resident Evil game I've never beat.
That's one I didn't even bother picking up.
It was terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Camera, I'm like, why is the camera like this? Why is he always running? Why is it like this? Like, this is not my Resident Evil. And just, no.
Well, listen, like I said, it's going to be interesting. I cannot wait to see Nemesis done the same way Mr. X was done, because Nemesis is one of my favorite bad guys of the Resident Evil series.
Oh, dude, he's got to be another level with this one too.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, remember Mr. The Titan with just footsteps. If he gets close, he'll punch you or whatnot. That's it. This is Nemesis. He has to be like 3 times more aggressive. So you hear stars. So now you have more cues to listen out for. You hear stars or hear footsteps, and if he comes at you, he'll shoot the rockets. I mean, you got a lot more to look out for Nemesis.
No doubt about that. Yeah, he's definitely going to be terrifying if they do it right, and I believe they are going to do it right. But King, I want to get your opinion on this. Resident Evil 3 remake, little Easter eggs. Capcom is notorious for that, right? They're a classic company, and they like delivering to their fans, but they also like teasing their fans. And we have heard many times over that Resident Evil 3 is in fact in active development because Resident Evil 2 was such a big success for them. Do you want to see Resident Evil 3 remade the same way they did 2 this year?
To answer your question, yes. I never picked the Resident Evil 2 remake. I played the one shot, and I'm waiting for it to hit Game Pass the same way I was waiting, for Devil May Cry to hit.
And it's probably going to. So.
Yeah, hopefully it gets in there right before the Halloween hits, and I can play it like I'm playing Friday the 13th. See, this is back in the days. They would build characters, they would build franchises, they would build them to the point that they will be able to stand alone. That's how they built their portfolio. Nowadays, if a game doesn't hit right off the bat, they scrap them. And before, they would build it. Like, let's say it sold a little bit, but they found a niche. They will keep on building on the franchise until it hit critical mass. Now, Resident Evil, what saved Resident Evil, it became such a cult classic that it spawned these movies that made, I mean, I know collectively they probably made a couple of billion. And these movies wasn't really set in the universe of Resident Evil. They tried to ground it in their universe, but it got such a mass appeal that when they do drop Resident Evil games, they resonate with the normal public because they understand that these games come from a movie that they've seen. So you may get the casual purchase, during the holiday season. So for, like Boom said, for the newer audience that hasn't had a chance to play the older games, it's fantastic that they get a chance to play these remakes, and us fans that love the classics can go and play these new age classics with these wonderful graphics that are taking advantage of the systems that we have now that are in place. So as far as Resident Evil 3, yeah, bring it on. Let it come out. Let it hit Game Pass day and date. And I'll be there, the first guy, downloading and playing it. So, as Captain Game Pass, I really can't justify paying for video games anymore, sir.
Yeah, it's funny you said that because I heard you on ILP saying that you're almost hesitant to buy games because Game Pass has gotten so good that when a game comes out 2 months after its release, like a perfect example is Metro Exodus. And I'm wondering if they're gonna start following, because this is a topic for another day. But when you talk about Game Pass, it seems like the games that have the marketing deals with Microsoft get into Game Pass. It happened with Devil May Cry. It happened with Metro Exodus, and I believe it might have happened to one or two other titles. So anyone that they have marketing deals with, there's a good chance that it could show up. And they did have I believe they had the marketing rights for Resident 2, so it could very well pop into Game Pass.
Well, I think also it extends to that big screen on E3. A lot of those games that you see on that big screen is going to fall their way into Game Pass in some form or fashion. So when you start looking through the tea leaves and you start understanding how the trends are going and where the companies is trying to push it, yeah, it makes perfect sense, for if a game died down and, it's not moving in these streets anymore, for it to get to a service where it can actually go someplace. I don't care if it gets into PlayStation Now. Give me a reason to purchase PlayStation Now. Give me a reason to do these things, to get these services. So I would like for these companies to be a little bit more diligent and pushing forward. I want date and date, to be honest with you.
Me too.
So, yeah, do that. Make that happen.
I mean, you never know. I mean, obviously, Game Pass has exploded. It's one of the most successful services launched this generation, and it's continuing to grow. Millions and millions of people are on there. I mean, I'm paid up until 2022. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'm good. I know you are as well. Jamie Moran, I want to get your opinion on this, dude. Resident Evil 3 is going to be, like the kids call it, a banger when it's released early next year. And if they follow suit, it's going to be released in the first quarter. Now, again, we don't know anything yet. There's been no official word from Capcom. But there's just, like King usually likes to say on ILP, where there's smoke, there's fire. And there has been a lot of rumors. There's been a lot of leaks about Resident Evil 3. Do you yourself want to see a Resident Evil 3, that classic title on the PlayStation, be brought into the generations of today in the same way that Resident 2 was done earlier this year?
Resident Evil 2 is amazing. Like, it has to be probably the best remake ever made. And when I was playing that, all I could think was, can we get Dino Crisis?
Yes.
And Resident Evil 3 was never my favorite. Resident Evil 2 always was. And, I couldn't stand Nemesis back in the day. But, like, Resident Evil 2 made so much money, and the way it was remade and how good it was, I'd be up for 3. And, Capcom, you're right, they were on the rocks for a few years, and then Resident Evil 7 came out, and it was massive. Then they had Monster Hunter, massive, and continuous big hits. And like to say, Capcom needs to come out with new IP, and they're going to come out with new IP eventually.
Yes.
But them concentrating on like this makes a lot of sense because it's guaranteed money, and if they keep it at the quality that Resident Evil 2 was, well, it's going to be a success. But I'm wondering is that, there's been rumors all over the place for the past year or two now about Resident Evil 8, and personally, I prefer the direction of 2 Remake because the whole first-person thing for horror games just isn't for me because, like, when you got your headphones in, it's like, what's behind me? I'll take third person any day. So, like, I'm thinking they probably using these remakes as a test bed for what they're going to do for 8 because I'm thinking 8 and possibly remake come out possibly late next year or early 2021 because next year is filled with games and I don't think there's space for something like a Resident Evil remake with all that stuff in the way.
It's going to be interesting for sure. I mean, next year is stacked, but I don't think that that Capcom would wait. I think that even though it is a remake, even though it's being outsourced, there's a good chance that it still would sell in the millions because obviously it's Resident Evil. It's one of their most popular and successful franchises. There's no doubt about that. Jamie, anything else you'd like to add before we get to Zemi's point on this?
Yeah, when it comes to Resident Evil 3, I mean, Resident Evil 2 was announced, the E3, and then we got it the following January or February. So like that would indicate possibly the next release for it, Resident Evil 3 Remake, would be the announcement at E3 and possibly come out in the holiday of 2020 or again in the early of the next following year.
Yeah, it's possible. It's definitely possible. I mean, obviously, Resident Evil 8 is in active development. We don't have no information on that, so it's definitely going to be where they place it. They do very well in the beginning of the year. I know we have some big games in the first quarter of 2020, but I still think that this would do very well. And of course, Zemi Games, I want to get your opinion. I know you're probably not going to play it unless there's multiplayer, but what are your thoughts on the Capcom actually bringing forward this classic and giving it the 2020 treatment that they gave 2019's Resident Evil 2?
Well, I mean, as everyone knows, I'm pretty much the official channel coward. But I mean, so there's no way I'm going to play it. But I definitely think it should come out. I'm definitely excited for the fan base. Another question, just a quick question. What exactly is the price point on a remastered Resident Evil game? Is it $60?
Well, I mean, this wasn't just a fresh coat of paint thrown on Resident Evil 2. This was from the ground floor up remade. They just used the Resident Evil 2. The only thing that's the same thing is Resident Evil 2, the name. Everything else is redone from the ground up. So it was a full on $60 title, but absolutely worth it.
Even the sound design.
Because what I was going to say is, like, even early 2020 is definitely stacked, but if they, I know that a lot of the times these remasters are usually, at like the price point is cut, like, sometimes in half, like $30. And if that was the case, then it would definitely stand a really good chance of performing well, like early in the year. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely excited for the fan base. I'm definitely excited for all of like the new players to the franchise. I know that Resident Evil 1 really hit a lot of people in a good way. Resident Evil 2 followed up with that, and hopefully Resident Evil 3, even though it's being rumored or that it's being developed by a different studio, hopefully they can still capture that magic. I just want there to be a co-op game. Like, I really hope that Resident Evil 8 is like some form of co-op, or Capcom decides to release a co-op Resident Evil game. I think we had a topic like that a few weeks or a few months back, and I really, really hope for that, because there's just no way I'm going to be able to go in single player and enjoy that game. You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't really have too much to say on this, as
I would imagine. Well, I mean, it's okay.
And I don't really play Resident Evil, but yeah.
And well, listen, dude, it's perfectly okay. We still your opinion, even though you're not going to play, it still matters. But again, this was just a little bit of a fun topic to kind of start the show, because obviously I'm a big listen. When I say Resident Evil freak, folks, let me tell you something, okay? Mrs. Boomstick not only is one of the most amazing women I've ever known, she is one that understands what a collector loves about collecting. And for our first anniversary, there was a special edition. It was a 10-year Resident Evil anniversary. And it was our first anniversary. She got me, now it came in a briefcase, folks, a real life metal umbrella briefcase that came with the entire every Resident Evil game ever released, every soundtrack ever released. And it was like one of those attaché cases that get handcuffed to you. It said Umbrella on it. I still have it. It's worth thousands. And that's how much of a fan I own every Biohazard ever released. Even the crummy light gun games, I own them. So I just thought this would be a fun topic, kind of just get us a little, loosened up for the next big one, which I think King is probably chomping at the bit to talk about. So let's get into the second topic, and it's a big one, folks. Now, I before the chat goes crazy, understand that this is a title. This is not a clickbait title. This is the title of the of where I pulled it from. Okay, now look, here's the name of it. This is topic number 2. 5 reasons why the PlayStation 5 will lose to the Xbox next generation. And I pulled this from the website Metro Entertainment. And though I don't agree with everything that they wrote, the author does raise some very good points, and we're going to break that down. So there are 5 points that I'm going to read. And then, of course, I'm going to get the opinion of the panel, and I want to hear the chat, what they have to say about this. Okay? Here's point number 1. Winners' disadvantage and complacency within the overall PlayStation division. This could very well be an issue moving forward. Could the arrogant Sony be rearing its ugly head like it did with the PlayStation 3? Being in first place for so long, some have said Sony is only protecting their lead and not pushing past it. Now, here's point number 2, the race for power. With the revelation of the SSD, new PlayStation controller, and now confirmed hardware ray tracing, the power narrative is important regardless of what anyone tells you. It was important in 2013 and will be even more important in 2020. Could the pressure of matching the Xbox Scarlett will put Sony put basically the pressure on them to match what Phil Dominus Spencer talked about with never losing the power narrative again? It's going to be interesting. Now, I am going to say good on Sony for letting us know that it's going to be hardware and not software ray tracing, because that would have really undercut the PlayStation 5. So listen, I'm a day one adopter, and I'm glad to know that the monster that we're getting is going to have the hardware-based ray tracing. Now, here's the third point. Streaming matters, and the blatantly, and that's obviously blatantly apparent, with Microsoft signing Ninja to an exclusive 6-year contract, pushing the Mixer brand to the forefront of streaming. Sony hasn't done anything to talk about how they can match Microsoft, and with Project xCloud beta in the wild and doing very well, I might add you, where does that leave Sony? That's a really good point. Now, here's point number 4. Multiplayer options for the player base is something that Sony really has dragged their heels, and even with The Last of Us 2's multiplayer being scrapped, making the first-party multiplayer issues even more concerning. Does Sony need to do better with offering their fans more than just strong single-player games? That's another great point. And here's the 5th and final point as to why Sony could possibly lose to the Xbox Scarlett in the next generation. Internal politics that were made public have, in my opinion, damaged the brand going into the next generation. But more importantly, confidence is at an all-time low in one of the biggest markets right now. And I'm talking about the EU, the European territory, layoffs, mixed messaging to their employees, and huge shifts in management has caused many gamers to question the direction moving forward. Is this a big problem to start the next generation? And folks, I have to say it is. So now I'm going to get the point of the panel. And King, I want to go to you first because you were laughing like a villain when I was telling you about this topic. What are your thoughts and opinions about the 5 reasons that the PS5 could potentially lose to the Xbox Scarlett in the next generation?
That article didn't note one specific reason, and that's the 6th reason. That's finances. Now, the regular public would want you to believe that PlayStation is thriving. Not too long ago, I had to put out a comparison of the overall health of a company, and how you gauge the overall health of a company is how their stocks are trading and where their stocks are trading at. Not too long ago, Sony stocks were considered junk stocks. At the same time as Capcom was going through their transition and their muddled bankruptcies, Sony was closing down houses and stuff like that, and development houses, and consolidating their stuff. And the PlayStation 4 came through. Thank God. I've lived through NEC closing. That's TurboGrafx. That's
Yep.
PC Engine. I've watched Neo Geo turn from a hardware company to a software company. I've watched the same thing happen to Sega. Nintendo has enough money that they were able to stave off a couple of bad launches on systems, and they're really hitting on all cylinders with the Switch. Sony wasn't in that position to do that at that point in time with the PlayStation 4. They had to hit. It had to come out. It had to win. And I believe that the structure of the hierarchy that was in place at that point in time capitalized on the mistakes of Microsoft, because remember, Microsoft was leading with the 360. And we know the always on DRM crap that everybody's talking about, but your systems are always on now. The DRM is in now. A lot of stuff that everyone wasn't ready for that Microsoft was pushing forward is actually happening and been happening. You're just more palatable to it when it's somebody that you're comfortable with. I told you, Microsoft is a company that you never wanted. You wanted Sega, but you got Microsoft. Sony is accident champions because every time somebody makes a mistake, they capitalizes on it. And that's supposed to do that, and that's what you're supposed to do in business. Now, as far as them not being ready for the streaming, they tried when they purchased Gaikai, and the Gaikai acquisition was working how they wanted to at that point in time. Now that streaming is more robust and you're allowed to download your games to your hard drive and have those games so you can play them if something happens to the stream, that alleviated a lot of pressure. They had to bend to that and kowtow to that to allow that to happen. And in doing so, I believe that they made PlayStation Now a more viable option when it comes to streaming, especially with some of their first-party games that's inside PlayStation Now right now. Let me see. What was the other 3 topics? It was the streaming. I gave you the finances. What was the other 2?
What about the multiplayer? What are your thoughts on them kind of? I mean, like, perfect example. Like, people will turn around and say, "Oh, they have multiplayer. They have it in Uncharted. They have it in The Last of Us." And now The Last of Us 2 scrapped it. And yes, it is coming, but people were very disappointed, and I don't blame them.
All right. So the thing with the multiplayer with Sony, they play to their strengths. They play to whoever's in charge, right? So whoever's in charge, and they have to understand that PlayStation has homegrown this strength of single player experience games that made you sit down with your PlayStation and endeared you to the box. While Microsoft took a different strategy, they took a strategy of multiplayer, right? So the Halo multiplayer, yeah, you had a great story, but the multiplayer trumped the story. The multiplayer is what captivated you. The multiplayer is what made you buy TVs. You didn't buy TVs for your Sony to hook up multiple Sonys, to play a certain game, like Resistance or something like that. So at this point in time, they have to make a switch. It will have to be a culture switch with inside Sony, which I don't believe their DNA is that. Their DNA is single player games. So you want them to acquire studios that have that fundamental base when it comes to that. I don't see it in the acquisitions that they purchase. I see them furthering the single player narrative. Going forward, they don't have games like you say, Gears of War, right? Gears of War was made in a fashion that you're able to get sponsorships and stuff like that, and tournaments and stuff linked to the game. When they acquired the Street Fighter, which I thought hurt Capcom more than anything by allowing it only to be on Sony and only to be on a PlayStation, they had a multiplayer fighting game that they can take to tournaments. And for some reason, I think it was removed out of certain tournaments or certain versions of the game. And they have to tweak it. See, they don't have a Smash Brothers and things of that nature. They have to work on these multiplayer experience games to broaden the playability and the viability of streaming service. They're lacking in that. That's a minus for them. So if you're going into the PlayStation 5 looking for that type of experience, that experience will not be really offered in a robust fashion as it would be offered in, you say, something like Stadia or something like the new Xbox. I, I don't really believe Sony is in a position to lose. I don't believe that it's complacency. I believe they capitalized on certain shortcomings that Microsoft was doing. Now, when Microsoft is not playing, you see that the PlayStation Pro can't stand up to the X, right?
Right.
That's just what happens when Microsoft isn't playing. The fear that any Sony fan right now has is what happens when Microsoft actually gets their stuff together? What happens when they actually takes this for serious? Because it was like some side project that they had there, and they let Bomber and those guys mess with it. Hey, see what you can do in space. So what happens now when they actually look at it and say, "I want to win"? What happens when they have somebody like Phil, Dominus Maximus Spencer, sit there and say, "We want to win. We want to win," but he doesn't want to destroy. See, that's the difference between good leadership and bad leadership. Bad leadership will want to destroy competition. Good leadership will want to bring up competition. They went
Yes.
and made sure that they had their servers over there, right? So they didn't have to offer service. What would Sony need to and be in the battle? Good service going forward. If Sony falls out, Microsoft understands, Phil understands that if Google Stadia gets a foothold in, Amazon is coming in and others. And you would rather have those who have the DNA and great franchises that we don't want to see go anywhere with Sony still be viable. I just want to see their stock prices raised.
Yeah, I mean, I put it to this way. I don't think they're going to lose either. I mean, again, this was an article. It was written. It was someone's opinion, and I admitted that I don't agree with it. I think that the only way that they lose, quote unquote, lose is if they completely do a 180 and revert back to trying to do things that are not working for them. They have a big lead. People are going to go out and buy a PlayStation 5. We know why they sold so many PlayStation 4s. It's the cool system. It's the in system. It's the system that casuals buy because all of their hardcore friends have them. So
Is that true, Boom, or was it based off the backs of Digital Foundry?
I mean, you could definitely make that you could definitely make that assumption that the media themselves, the media outlets, the IGNs, the GameSpots, the Kotakus, you
Shout out
know,
to Brap.
you
Shout out to
know,
Brap. Brap has
they
been
they they
screaming this
they
for
could
years.
have very well been the little engines that kept pushing and propelling the PlayStation brand. Now we're never going to really know. I mean, was money exchanged? I mean, someone would say no, someone would say yes. You know, it depends on who you ask. And you know, because of having these entities that have so many millions and millions of viewers, they put the PlayStation brand in front of the eyes of these casuals, the same way it was done during the 360 era, I might add. Okay, so
Boom, I have a question, Boom. I have
sure,
one question.
yeah.
How come we have 117 people watching and only 13 likes? I don't care if you don't like. I don't care if you like. Put those likes or put those dislikes, but let's get those things up. Let's go, people. Come on.
Yeah, I you
Gotta
know what?
refresh the page.
That's a little bit shocking because these shows are made to entertain. And if you are listening, you're one of the 118 people that are listening, and you're enjoying it. I would urge you to hit the thumbs up button because it really does help the channel. Like, I mean, getting this particular show or any of my shows in front of other viewers, especially new viewers, thanks to the different ways that Google looks to crush the smaller shows in favor of the big time streamers. The only way that this show is going to grow is with the help of the community and the public. And if you are enjoying it, like the King said, thank you for that, King. Hit the like button. If you're not enjoying it, well, then I say hit the thumbs down button. I'm not going to cry about it. But I do think I put on a pretty decent show, even though I've seen that according to we've had a couple of skip frames here on OBS, and unfortunately, the only thing I could suggest is just rewind it a little bit, and you won't get any of the clipping that some people have noticed. Some days, with this new OBS slash Discord setup, it's not perfect. It doesn't work the same way Hangouts worked, unfortunately. And I've made numerous changes to the PC, and it just some days work great, and some days it doesn't. But I want to continue with, of course, the show, and I want to go to BitCloud on this one. This article was interesting, and I'm sure it got a lot of both hate and likes because both communities probably came out to boo it and support it. But in your opinion, do you agree with the author where these particular 5 points could in fact hurt Sony if they're not careful in the next generation?
Well, honestly, if you really look at it, it sounds like the same thing you kind of heard with the PlayStation 3.
Yes.
Go get the PlayStation 3. Remember, Sony was really, really hurting as a company. Remember, Sony was more than just gaming. They had TVs, they had MP3s, they had all that. They were in every particular branch. Now they've scaled it down to the point where they're only gaming, TVs, and I think phones. I don't think they're into music or in music as well. So they're not necessarily in that particular broader scope like they were back in the day. And since they're not in that particular broader scope, obviously people are going to say what they need to say here. And the thing is, I don't agree with them saying that Sony's going to do X amount of things. And the reason why, let's be real here, Sony can't afford to get cocky or arrogant going to the next gen with PS5. They can't afford to do something stupid like that. They can't. The whole changing of their in terms of the actual company, in terms of the way they're going about it, that's not necessarily their leadership wise. What they're doing is their PR. That was all based on their PR department. They want to have better advertisements out there for their particular territories. Though it does affect some things, I think it will affect some things because if y'all remember, each particular branch of Sony, whether it be Sony Europe, Sony Japan, Asia, they were responsible for their own set exclusives. Y'all remember that? They all had their own exclusive things. So I'm not sure if that's changing that particular strategy. I don't think they're changing that strategy, but more time will tell as they going forward. As far as Europe, I don't see Europe even struggling at all. Because remember, Jim Ryan is he's one of the main ones to push Europe when he came to the start of this gen, the main one. And since Sean Layton is no longer there, you're going to see a lot more games coming from them as well. So I don't see nothing, have anything. I don't see anything that happen. But you know, everybody's going to have that particular mindset, especially going from last gen. As far as them saying, what else did they say? It was streaming.
Yeah, streaming. It
Was
seems
it
as
streaming?
if that they have not even mentioned, and streaming is a big deal. You can tell I mean, there's a reason why they signed Ninja to an exclusive 6-year deal worth millions.
Yeah. Streaming, how do I feel about the whole streaming aspect? Now, I get it. Microsoft does have a lead in the streaming. They have a better infrastructure for sure. And they've already built themselves like in a better state with theirs. Sony is behind when it comes to streaming, but at the same time, Sony isn't necessarily prioritizing streaming for
Right.
any particular way. It's not really a priority. Sony's priority has always been just the AAA games and giving you that reason and that incentive for you to buy the hardware. Keep in mind, look at the whole thing with PlayStation Now, right? You still need a PlayStation 4 if you really want to experience these games in its true quality. You're not going to get the true quality on PlayStation Now. They're just not going to do it. It's not
Right.
going to work. You can't even download the games on PlayStation Now on PC. So you're kind of stuck in that loop between either do I want to stream this or do I want to play this natively and play the game at its full potential on a Pro or just a base PS4. And that's kind of where they want you to be. They want you to be in that particular ecosystem so that you buy the hardware. That's what they want. And Sony's doing a good job of that. And this is why I said numerous times too. Like I said here, I believe too, where I said, games day and date. I know you guys are falling in love with games day and date on a service. I mean, hell, even Ubisoft has caught wind of this. That's why they're coming out with Uplay Plus. I think that's what it's called, right?
Yes.
Uplay Plus.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's kind of picking up onto this. I would not be surprised if EA has something else with with their own thing. You're going to see something with 2K. All these games are going to be on some kind of streaming service. But the thing about having games on a streaming service, yeah, it might be cool for us in terms of like, especially if you're on a budget and you don't necessarily have especially if you don't want to gel out $60 for a lot of these games. It really does seem like it hurts the game in the long run. And the reason why I say it hurts the game in the long run, you kind of treat it like you would treat a movie on Netflix, kind of like shovelware. It's like, do I want to play this? Nah, I don't want to play this. You just move it off to the side and you just kind of just browse to these games. You're going, like you kind of do that. And I don't like that. I don't like having. I don't like
that's
feeling
with
like
everything that you have that's in abundance. So I mean, not to to battle your point. The point is fairly accurate. I don't think they have the infrastructure to sustain an XCloud type of experience with a PlayStation.
Oh yeah, I'm getting to that. I was getting to that too. Yeah,
okay.
That's why Sony. I was getting to that, but that's why because remember Gaikai was. I mean, if you think about it, Gaikai was already outdated when they brought Gaikai.
Yep. Yes,
Yeah,
it was.
like
Yes.
we all thought it was cool on paper, but Gaikai kind of was already outdated. Microsoft was looking at more feature wise.
Wasn't they from On Live?
Mixture?
No, On Live. Remember the game system On
Yes.
Live? Wasn't Gaikai On Live?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I had that service, I had that system, and I had the control. I mean, I thought it was phenomenal at the time, but that was
now it's just
10 years
the
ago.
technology that they use. Their servers are just not really the greatest at this time. They gotten better. I will admit. I will give my Sony credit. They have gotten better now. But it's just not really. I wouldn't say they're feasible. I wouldn't say they're like up there with what Microsoft's trying to do. I don't think it's the same level. And with Stadia around the corner, Stadia's talking about Google assisted gameplay and all that with their streaming service. I mean, I don't know. I don't know about all that. So they're obviously going to be the odd one out. Now, yes, Sony did caught a deal to improve their service because remember they're going to be using a Zero service. Yes. And this was due to them selling semiconductors to Microsoft. So Microsoft's got some semiconductors out of this deal. So obviously both sides are going to benefit from this, but we don't know how big of a jump they're going to do with PlayStation Now and how well it's going to improve from this point forward. So obviously you got to be a little optimistic of what you're going to get from PlayStation Now, right now at least. It's
not. I put it this way. I would have jumped on it, but it's just the way the service is set up. It's not what I want. Even at $5 a month, it's not what I'm looking for. I want the two biggest hurdles for me with the current PlayStation Now subscription service is one, their first party titles leave after a couple of months. I have a problem with that.
That's the trick. That's the trick.
They put God of
system.
War in. They get some subscribers, and then they pull it out after a couple of months. And then what are they going to put it replace? Whereas if you look at the way Microsoft is doing it, they have all their first party goes in there and stays in there, and the day and date thing. Listen, I understand. I get it. Sony sells a lot of copies of the games. But there was just an article released just today about how sales on games are up 40% as opposed to not being in Game Pass. And this is across the board. This isn't just first-party games. So if they put their first-party games in their day and date, there's a good chance that sales would increase. And until Sony does that, I'm not subscribing to this service. Even if it was $1 a month, I wouldn't do it because it's not what I personally want.
Yeah, I mean, again, the sales figures when it comes to services, I mean, obviously you're going to have an increased sell rate when it comes to services over the actual retail, especially if you had a service that was $1 and you had bangers on the service. So of course that would sell ridiculously fast. But
yeah, of course it would. Yeah,
that's not really the point where Sony's trying to be at least not yet, you know. And I can see probably in the future, maybe depending on how things turn out and how well things really happen. But I don't see it right now.
Just question, right? What's up? Out of all the millions of owners of PlayStation 4s, right? Mm-hmm. How many have a PlayStation now?
How many have PlayStation now?
Not a lot. I put it was under 1 million before they did this sale.
I also made a small fraction of actually PlayStation.
So how much is that really going to hurt? I mean, I think actually to grow your business, you have to invest in your business, right? So why not put your best assets? They tell you all the time, put your best foot forward.
Yes, absolutely. Right? Great point.
So put your best assets in there. Leave them in there. I mean, what's an old game for you might not be an old game for the next person. And people that still want to purchase those games, listen, I know there's got a lot of games that's inside Game Pass that I still went out and purchased that steel box edition just to have it, you know, just because I'm a fool like that, maybe. I don't know what you want to call it. But, you know, people still go out and purchase. I honestly believe it's the infrastructure that's holding them back to having that ability and to be that flexible to say that we want to do this, because if only a small fraction has PlayStation Now, and PlayStation Now is the trendsetter when it comes to the streaming area, right? Why not have a larger user base? Especially if you sold over 100 and some odd million systems, you should let's have at least 10% of that.
Answer your question right there. If you think about it, you answer your question. Remember, Sony said before, not really just Sony, it was Sean Layton at the time, right? So obviously this was from the board of directors. Right. So they said this. You know, hardware sales, console hardware sales are very important to them. So if you want to sell the hardware, you still need those bangers.
Yes.
One on your system. And if you put it on a service, right? A service that you know for a fact is not up to par with the competition, at least not now. It'd be smart to keep it on the hardware. So that way you put your best foot forward that way by giving you the quality version on the hardware, the full-fledged, all-out graphical, you know, everything, right? The jump, all that, the features on the hardware. And then you have all that there. And then later on, when you improve your service, you actually start advertising better games on the actual service. But right now, it's just not there. Notice that they're going to be doing. I know you said that you want the games to stay in there permanently, right? All the games that they've added, you know, like the first party device. Well, PS4 games are going to be in there eventually. I mean, when we get the PS5, PS4 titles, you're going to see just be added in there. They're going to be dumped in there regardless.
Well, right? Morally, I have a bet that's going against that, so I don't believe it to be true, sir. But
you know, they'll add them eventually. I mean, usually that's what they do.
It's just my little bet that I got going on that they're not able to do.
Oh, you did the holdout? I mean, they could be. You know,
it's just the back lie that I got going on with Lord Sovereign. But Lord Cognito is actually playing, and he said that the PlayStation Now streaming service, because he was at work playing on Wi-Fi, and he said, because I think he was playing Destiny or something. I don't know what he
probably
was playing
Destiny, if I had to make a guess.
I know, right? He would be buying Destiny on every service that he can get it on. That he was playing in it. He was at work and it was great. So I'm the infrastructure is physically.
Depends on the real. It really depends on the user in that regard too. You got to
True.
keep in mind. You know, it's going to come down to you. That's why Microsoft's pushing 5G networks and everything, and they're really trying to go all out there, which is smart. So you know, they're trying ways to make theirs work really, really good. They're really focusing on the latency portion, and that's really the problem with streaming games is the latency and everything.
Google got it down to negative late.
Yeah, negative latency. Yeah, that's a subject for another.
No, though about Google. Like I want to see. Like obviously, I know a lot of you are Google, but I really want to see how that Mortal Kombat game goes. I remember Mortal Kombat's fast paced.
They said they're using some technology that's inside. What's that game? Killer Instinct for Xbox that they were using for the Mortal Kombat and through Google. I'm not really familiar with it because trust me, I'm no IT guy. I can't sit here and tell you how to take apart your PC and what works. I'm not doing that. That's not going to happen. But Scrub Nurse, you know about the knees.
Yeah,
right?
he sure does. Listen, real quick, before we move on to the next panel member, first of all, I have to thank Mrs. Boomstick showing up in the chat, talking with the folks, and dropping a $20 super chat for her hubby. Thank you so much for that. And Cedric H., a fan favorite of the community, dropped a $5 super chat. Dude, thank you so much for your generosity, but more importantly, thank you for being here. But I want to move on to Jamie Moran on this particular topic and get your point. What do you think about the author giving these 5 particular points that he broke down? I will admit that I did change what he, a lot of what he said to my own words, because I don't I'm not gonna copy someone's work, but those thoughts were my personal thoughts, even though, like I said, a lot of his points on that article I didn't agree with, because I think Sony is in really good shape. But complacency, cockiness, arrogance, those kind of things can in fact hurt a company. It happened with Sony. It happened with with the Xbox One, and we don't want to see history repeat ourselves. With anyone for that matter. But nobody wants anyone to quote unquote lose, because when a company loses, the industry suffers, and if the industry suffers, the fans suffer. So, but what are your thoughts on the 5 points? Jamie, you there, brother? No, he is not here.
I'll take the question.
I told you, David. I told you.
Yeah, Gizemi, well, why don't you follow up and answer that question?
Yeah, I mean, so like just looking at this article, like one big thing I have wrong with it is, 5 reasons PlayStation will lose to Xbox, next generation. What exact do both consider losing? Because PlayStation obviously would consider winning if they sold as many consoles as they did, or more than they did this generation. And Xbox would obviously consider winning if they made a lot of profit off of their software, if they expanded Game Pass, if the xCloud got a lot of gamers who don't have an Xbox and then who also do have an Xbox onto the Xbox platform. So, I mean, both companies have different ideas of what exactly winning is. And another thing that I have wrong with this article from Metro Entertainment is what's really going to determine whether or not PlayStation, quote unquote wins, Xbox, quote unquote wins, is what the consumers go with, right? It's who is buying game winner disadvantage. You know what I mean? They're not going to care that PlayStation was on top, and historically, usually, the one on top moves down to second place next generation. They're not going to care about that. Yes, PlayStation is being arrogant and kind of silly. There's a lot of concerning things kind of going on the internal side of, but consumers, a lot of consumers aren't even going to know about that. Yes, us hardcore people are. Yes, us content creators are. But whenever some, 13-year-old kid says, "Hey, Dad, I want a PlayStation," he's not going to know about that. He just knows that he wants a PlayStation, right?
Right.
So that's a big thing I have wrong with this article. Obviously, the race for power, that's great. I don't care if the Xbox is more powerful than the PlayStation. I don't care if the PlayStation is more powerful than the Xbox. A lot of consumers are not going to care for that. They're only going to care what the price point is.
Right.
If
Yes.
Xbox is a little bit more powerful, it's going to be tougher for them to drop down underneath that $500 price point, which I think a lot of people kind of think that the new Xbox is going to be 500, the new PlayStation is going to be 500. But if they're both even, I don't think a lot of consumers are going to care about the power. They're just going to go with what they right. And obviously, if Xbox is cheaper, then yes, that is an advantage to Xbox, and if PlayStation is cheaper, that's an advantage for that. But streaming, for instance. I think streaming is going to be really, really important. I think this generation is going to this new generation is going to open up the importance of streaming, but I don't think that it's super, super crucial for PlayStation to have access to streaming at the get-go. Internet is not across the country, even across the world, internet is not as reliable as what a lot of people think it is. A lot of these statistics talking about internet, they might be talking about what the high is for like a satellite company in a rural area. They're not talking about what that, internet's going to get throttled down to. And a lot of people, unfortunately, have that issue.
Yes.
So streaming, yes, it's important, but it's going to be important even more later on in the generation, opening up even into the following generation after this next one, right? And PlayStation is slowly, I'm sure, going to adopt, that ideology that streaming is important. They now have access to the Azure servers, and of course, they're going to continue, to get better on that front. And then as far as Mixer goes with Ninja, I mean, yeah, that's kind of good. I mean, Ninja will definitely be able to sell some titles, but I don't think it's that huge of an impact to say, the entire generation falls on Ninja, because Ninja is, on Mixer now, automatically Xbox is going to win. I don't see that, right? I don't really think that really has that big of a say. Multiplayer, Xbox has always been bigger on multiplayer games. Sony has always been bigger on single player games. Single player games get people involved into the story. They get attached to these characters. That's something typically multiplayer games don't do, but that's going to lead the Sony audience to be more attached to the Sony platform, because they want to play the new Last of Us. They want to see what the next God of War is going to bring. They're attached to these characters. They want to see them again. And of course, yes, multiplayer is important. Xbox does it amazingly, but Sony also has multiplayer games. Their first-party multiplayer games are not that good, but they still have third-party to fall on, and I think that that's what a lot of Sony players use. And then, the internal politics, once again, like I said before, a lot of what I really think it's going to fall onto is the consumer. I just don't think that they really care about the internal politics. A 13-year-old kid doesn't care. He doesn't know. A 15-year-old kid, he has no idea. A 20-year-old that works in a factory all day has better things to do with his life than, go onto the internet and look for articles about who's going to win the console generation. They don't really care. All they care about is what console is going to provide them personally the most bang for their buck, and which console do they, have they used before? Where is their backlog at? That's what these people are going to care about. They're not going to care about, these 5 different topics. From a content creator point of view, absolutely, we will care. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it makes sense because it's our livelihood. It's what we do.
Yeah. And from a hardcore gamer's point of view, somebody that wants to know everything that their favorite companies are doing, they're wanting to keep an eye on the competition, all this different stuff. Of course, the hardcore gamers are going to care as well. And my personal take on this is, like I said before, there's different ways. There's different ideology of who's going to win. PlayStation thinks it's all about hardware. Xbox thinks it's all about software. I believe it's whoever makes more money. And here for Xbox to make more money by selling software, then it's going to be for PlayStation to sell hardware, because usually PlayStation really does not. Well, these console companies usually do not make very much money off of hardware. And so what I think is really going to determine, the biggest factor that's going to determine who's, quote unquote, going to win is who is being more innovative, who is offering the consumer more value for their dollar. And currently, from what we're seeing, I think that's going to be Xbox leading the.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's all I had to say.
All right, well, listen, real quick, I want to see, did we get Jamie back? Okay, yeah, good. Before I get to you, Jamie, I just have to make two big shout-outs. First of all, LMNOP with the $4 super chat. Thank you so much for being here, dude. He says, happy Friday panel. Jamie is the man. Good show. And Rain G4, who's always in here supporting the streamers, he drops a $5 super chat. Thank you so much for that. He says, what if Microsoft brings in Peter Moore to assist Phil next generation? Yeah, you know what? I love Peter. I think he was a real energetic dude, but I just think that part of Microsoft is gone. And I don't think they're going to bring that back. I think Phil is going to just, walk quietly and carry a really big stick. But Jamie, I want to get your personal opinion on this, but then we're going to move on to the big Xbox Scarlett topic that we're going to be talking about. But for this one, the 5 points that the author came up with regarding the potential for Sony to lose in the next generation or be behind Xbox. Now, I mean, when he says lose, that's where I disagree, because I don't think they're going to lose. I think what he might have been implying when he wrote the article is because maybe he meant to insinuate that they'd be behind Xbox. I don't necessarily think they're going to crawl up in a hole and die. Sony has a lot of advantages going forward, going to the next generation, but they could, in fact, have some missteps. What are your opinions on this article, dude?
Well, sorry about before. Discord's acting up on my end.
It's
so when it
acting up.
comes to the whole that list for PlayStation, the thing is, right around now, we're getting these, subtle hints from Microsoft and Sony when it comes to Xbox Scarlett and PlayStation 5. So these places are, they have to get the clicks. Right. Personally, I think that Xbox and PlayStation Next Gen are both going to be very. When it comes to PlayStation, quote unquote, winning, complicated than that, because the Wii was a massive success despite the fact it was a terrible console. Came out, it was a disaster, but surprisingly, like a phoenix from the ashes. 360, which was one of the most successful consoles of all time, and in fact the most successful console of all time in the UK, with the Xbox One. It was just, yes, I love the console, but we all know what happened.
Yeah.
And they caught up worldwide. Anything. It could be anyone winning. But when it comes to Microsoft and Sony on the streaming front, I don't think that streaming devalues games. I think it actually makes them more valuable, because they put in this trust in these games that get people to, go and join the service. Like right before I joined this podcast today, I went on GameSpot.com and there was ads for PlayStation Now all over the place. Sony's dipping their toes into the waters because, look, yes, God of War and Uncharted are going to leave in January, but films appear on Netflix several times throughout the year, so they could end up putting them back on in April or July. It's a weird situation because Sony charge for multiplayer now. With all that money going on, maybe they've been spending years building up the infrastructure, but at the same time, why would they have paid Microsoft potentially billions for Azure Cloud? It points towards them wanting to do more. Now, I'm not going to say that the PlayStation 5 comes out and they're going to come out and say, okay, games at a day and date now, whatever. I don't think they'll do that straight away. I think they're just going to, because Microsoft had no day one in Game Pass, and then all of a sudden, bam, everything they were coming out with was day and date. It wasn't a gentle curve. It's not something we gradually got used to. It's like Microsoft's like, oh, by the way, your buying habits on this console are going to change right now. And it changed for a lot of people. And it turns out there was an article today that game sales on Xbox One are like 40% up. People are playing 40% more games, and
Yeah,
that's better for everyone.
yeah.
And like Microsoft have struck it's smart what Microsoft are doing with Game Pass, and I think Sony do that because it's not just a coincidence that Game Pass comes out and it's popular and everyone loves it, and then all of a sudden Sony's like, oh, by the way, we've had PS now for years. You can now download PlayStation 4 titles. It has nothing to do with Xbox Game Pass doing well, and then they come out with these games coming to the PC on PlayStation Now. And if you remember correctly, PlayStation Now was on TVs, it was on tablets, it was on all phones, it was on the PlayStation Vita TV, it was on everything. And then they took it away because at the beginning of the generation, they knew that the be end and all, whatever. And now they're looking towards the future and think, you know what? Maybe these plastic boxes aren't going to be around forever. And I think Sony's coming around to that because I have consoles for another 15 years. But after that, it's all going to be subscription-based services.
Yeah, no, I mean, it. You can see the writing on the wall. And real quick, I know that there's some people in the chat that's saying there's a lot of skipping. Folks, I've had this happen once before. I've made every possible setting change you could possibly imagine. And this is a YouTube thing. This is a Discord thing. Or an OBS thing. I don't know, but all I can say is that the best way, if you rewind the show just a few seconds, you'll miss all the skipping because it records fine. So if you're having any breakup issues, just kind of rewind the stream just a bit, and we should be back. You should hear it with no problem. And of course, if the skipping is really bad, you can always come back around. I'm time stamping everything, so if there's a particular topic that you want to listen to, it's going to be in the show notes exactly where we start and stop it. But Jamie, anything else you'd like to add? Because I want to move on to the Xbox topic that we have, which is a pretty big one.
Yeah, I'll just go to the multiplayer thing quick. PlayStation have a lot of users on their consoles, and I can't see that every single one of those users are going to say, no, I don't want multiplayer games. Multiplayer games make a lot of money, and you think, like, with all the leadership shakeups lately, that they've got to be looking at the multiplayer and think, you know what, maybe we'll do the occasional shooter. Maybe we'll bring back SOCOM and monetize
That'd be
it.
great.
Because
That'd be fantastic.
people do want SOCOM back, and that's PlayStation's probably number one shooter. So I think that they will, with the shakeup, has something to do with the whole streaming thing and the multiplayer thing, and I think it all just adds up, and that's pretty much me on that.
No, I mean, that's great points. That's really great points. Oh, wow, real quick, I have to drop a big hello and thank you to Scrub Nurse, who drops the outstanding and extremely generous $20 super chat. He says, I think these winning and losing articles are clickbait, and they're all counting consoles. The new winning is active users and software sales. Xbox has the head start. We must now grab mindshare. Marketing is key. Yeah, that's great. And actually, it's funny you should even say that, Scrub Nurse, because the next topic that we're going to talk about is a big one. The Xbox Scarlett is set to launch. And you know what? I got to tell you, and this is my opinion on this, could in fact, whatever they launch with, could in fact determine the entire generation and rocket the new Xbox brand to the lead position, just like Sony's PlayStation 4 did for this entire generation. Now, the question is, how important will the launch lineup be for the Xbox Scarlett in 2020? Huge, and here's why. If Microsoft wants to grab the attention of the gaming world, they're going to need bangers to open this generation, and the big boy, of course, is Halo Infinite, but that certainly cannot be it. In fact, I would dare say if they underdeliver in the first-party goodness, the buyer's confidence could essentially be lost at the start of the generation, just like it did between the Xbox One and PS4, and of course, that would be bad. Now, Let's look at what potential launch titles Phil Spencer and company will in fact be bringing to the table. And I came up with a list, and of course I'm going to get the opinion of the panel and the chat and see what they have to say about it. First of all, we know we're getting Halo. We know we're getting Forza Motorsport 8 because they're hard at work at that. They took a year off, and it's going to be big. I have a real gut feeling that we're going to get a Killer Instinct 2, a proper Killer Instinct 2, something I've been asking for. Flight Simulator 2020, they could hold that back and make that a launch title, which I think they should. And, you know, I had Fable Reboot in here, but now we're hearing that the Fable game itself may be a few more years out, so I'm going to remove that. But I am going to say this. It would be pretty interesting for them to go back to the OG Xbox IPs that they have been sitting on and may in fact been secretly working on. And of course, I'm talking about Mech Assault, Crimson Skies reboot, Perfect Dark reboot, or even the Banjo and Kazooie game I've been begging for. This would be an outstanding first-party lineup, but not. But this is where we need some help here, okay? As great as the lineup that I just talked about could potentially be, and I say potentially because we have no idea. The thing that they did really well in the 360 days was garner second-party exclusive support. It's something that they failed on this generation, okay? It's something that Sony has done really, really, really well. And it would be pretty incredible for them to release one or two titles that have been working on behind the scenes that no one knows about. I mean, listen, Phil Spencer understands what went wrong and caused them to be trounced this generation. And he's also been back and forth to Japan. I want to say, as far as we know, that have been publicized, at least half a dozen times in the last 18 months, wheeling and dealing. So there is the potential that he did make some of these second-party deals for these games coming out of Japan for the launch of the Scarlett. We don't know. Again, this is completely a speculation type of topic. But King, I want to get your opinion on this because we all understand, I think everybody in the panel, I think everybody in the chat understand that they need to hit the ground running. And they're setting themselves up, you know, the services are in place, Azure is in place, right? They have money coming in from Game Pass, but we know that they need the games, and I think they're going to deliver because they do have all of these new studios. What are your thoughts on my list for a launch, the launch lineup, and would you add anything else to that?
Okay, launch lineups. I didn't think we were doing this soon, but all right, let's get into it. Launch lineups. First and foremost, I don't think they're gonna make the same mistakes that they did the first time. The first time around was mixed messaging, and it was also a weak console, and they also pushed the Kinect on you. Remember, you know. I don't think they're ever going to make those mistakes again, even though you hear little rumors around here talking about there's a camera inside the PlayStation 5 and there's a camera inside the Xbox, Scarlett, whatever. I don't think they both make that mistake. But these titles going forward, you definitely know there's going to be a racing game. Racing game shows off the power of the system. We know that Halo's coming date and date. So we already know, boom, two of those is on deck, right? But when you get your system and when you get it home, it's going to have probably 1 month free of Game Pass.
Yep.
So what did you just get when you purchased your system? You purchased your system, you got Halo and Forza out the box with 200 other games. No other system is going to be able to do that day and date. All right. You know, the best games are going to be sold in conjunction with the systems. So they're going to put bundle packages together. This is going to be a way, you're going to see a different format when it comes to bundle packages from GameStop. You know, instead of bundling games with the Xbox, they're going to be bundling subscriptions of Game Pass with the Xbox. All right. And what does that actually do? That actually ingratiates the consumer to the ecosystem. It actually facilitates every purchase into Game Pass, every system. You know, you're going to load it up. You get the game Halo there. Of course, the engagement is going to be through the roof. They probably want a 1-to-1 on every system that is sold inside Game Pass. Now you say, okay, you got those 2 games there. They purchased 15 studios. 15 studios, of course, one of those studios is going to have an RPG. So we need an RPG. So is it going to be Fable? I don't think so. It'll be a first-party new RPG coming from the wonderful minds of the AAA studio, probably Obsidian. We don't know. Because, when you start introducing all of these possibilities, you don't want to put a shooter up against a shooter with Halo. You want Halo to have,
Right.
you want a
Yes.
racer to have its own breath. So they're not going to position it with Forza. So next logical genre is going to be an RPG. Then you might have a strategy game and a flight simulator, like you said. So the strategy game might be a turn-based strategy game within the world of Gears. We don't know. So I believe that, and I'm going to go with genres instead of actual game title. All right. So you're going to have the shooter in Halo, the racer in Forza, RPG, a strategy game, and a flight simulator. 5 games that I believe that's going to be off the top. And then they're going to space out the games, one new banger every month. Maybe Perfect Dark the next month. Maybe the next month after that, you get another IP, Banjo-Kazooie going down and going forward and using every studio that they have. If you do the ratio between studios, 15 studios, that's 15 games, one each month in Game Pass to show the viability of Game Pass. And if you can acquire a third-party studio that has a AAA title and you can put that day and date inside Game Pass, once you start making day and date a thing, that when you can have it here the same day, like they're doing right now with the Outer Worlds, or you could go buy it on PlayStation. I mean, the consumer is going to start putting their hands together and just saying, I don't want to be $60 light. I'd rather be $10 to $15 light in my pocket. So I'm getting the same experience. Why am I spending a difference of $50? It doesn't equate. In these financial times, in these unsure times where everybody's trying to save a dollar and everybody's trying to make stuff last and stretch, services is going to be the only thing that's going to sustain us, okay? Because Netflix is not a multi-billion-dollar company for no reason. It's a reason. You don't go to the movies all the time. You only go to the movies now to see certain movies that captured your eye when they was telling you about it 6 to 8 months before, that you geared up for it and you made it movie night. Now you financially, you can't take the family out to do that, but you can wait for it to hit Netflix though.
Yes.
So these services is going to be what pushes everything forward. I hope with the new hierarchy that's inside PlayStation right now, and I see the turnaround when it comes to that PlayStation now dropping the price and first party titles here, and they're trying to let you download and do all this other stuff. I want them to gear up. I want them to buck up. I want them to actually have them services.
Yes.
I want to be able to log into PlayStation now. I want it to be viable when I buy a PlayStation 5. I want to be able to say, all right, I want to play The Last of Us 2 there. I want to be playing Ghost of Tsushima there. I want to be playing Death Stranding and all my titles there. I want it to be the main vein for the hardcore. I want the hardcore to make the switch. And once the hardcore makes the switch, the casual is going to follow.
Yes, yeah, I agree, and people seem to forget that. Okay, when you talk about hardcore, this is a number that varies in different people's opinion, and I would say this for hardcore across the board. Hardcore makes up, and I'm going high here, folks. I want you to know I'm going high here. 20% of each console of circle that they run in. So it's only 20%, and I'm going high. It could be less. Hardcore is going to buy everything day one. They're going to be there, waiting in line, waiting in the cold, waiting in the rain. They don't care. Now, obviously, for games we don't have to wait anymore. But I still miss standing on those lines, talking with other gamers. That was always fun. But it's only 20%, and that might be highballing it. But King's onto a point, because the hardcore, even though it's a smaller number, they're the loudest, right? We are the loudest because we are the hardcore. Any hardcore, in regards to whether it's films, music, food, for crying out loud. If you're a hardcore fan about something, you're going to speak the most about it. You're going to be the loudest to talk about it. And that's where you start to get the casuals to come in. Now, if Microsoft releases this, and it kind of looks like the way King described it is the way they're going, there's going to be a game available at launch for everyone. Every type of genre is going to be available. You're going to have your first-person shooter, right? You're going to have, we're hearing, right? I left it off the list because I wasn't sure. But Ninja Theory's AAA game, they've been working on it for quite some time. It could release in the release window. So if that does happen, and Flight Simulator is one of them, you're going to have that. You're going to have a driving sim in your Motorsport 8. You're going to have your first-person shooter. You're going to have maybe potentially a Japanese JRPG that's exclusive, that Phil made a deal with that no one knows about, right? He did say he held some things back. And then, of course, you could possibly have that Sony type of game where it's that over-the-shoulder, story-driven, adult-themed, content-driven title. Right, like what they're known for. So it is important that they have something for everyone. And if they do, man, they could really hit the ground running. It's anything else you'd like to add, King?
No, I just see it as the way forward. I just see it as, and you know who that helps? Them putting their games inside Game Pass day and date. That helps the next system that you're going to purchase. That frees up so much money. You know how much money I paid on buying Dreamcast and I think it was 16 titles?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I bought everything on launch. Everything at launch.
Right? 2 controllers,
yes.
16 titles. You probably didn't even use the second controller.
No, it's in the box.
That first one broke. You got it. You understand? So you're going in there spending $700, $800. Well, now you're going to pay $1,000. Right? Not anymore.
No, because all the games are there.
You buy your system, you go home.
Yes.
But now you have enough money to go buy your PlayStation 5.
Yes.
Or whoever comes out first.
Good point.
So this generation is not going to be in a position. Listen, when I tell you that these companies had to work together, they're not working together in one strategic form. I lend you a game, you lend me a game. No. They're working together to build the infrastructure that they can stand on the pillars, that you can have that viable console, that Sony is not going to go into the handheld space because Nintendo is there. Microsoft is not going to try to cut PlayStation legs off by putting Halo out here, and you got to buy Halo to play it and to charge all these exorbitant prices for all these games when you got these games. And if you want to buy some third-party titles that are there, you can purchase those. But all you really needed was your system, your controller, and those games that's on that free Game Pass that they put in the box.
Yeah.
And buy your Sony, buy your PlayStation, and then figure it out from there. But now you can go home with 2 consoles instead of this generation where people only got 1 because they can't afford to have 2.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, because that's something else that a lot of people are not thinking about. With the hardware-based ray tracing, I am telling you right now, and you can mark this on your calendar. If you think the PlayStation 5 is coming in at $399, if you think it's coming in at anything less than $499.99 plus tax, you are sadly mistaken. I'm here to assure you that it's going to be $500. And do I think it's going to be $599? No. Both consoles are going to be $499.
Not even Microsoft's going to eat no $100 loss.
Well, no, I mean, obviously, if the tariffs play a big part,
that's not going to affect the consoles anymore.
Yeah, that's. I'm just talking about just the general pricing. I didn't even factor in the tariff. The tariffs could really hurt gaming.
Won't affect them. The tariffs are no longer a thing.
Oh, okay, so they're no longer a thing. Okay, well, listen, you know what? Being that you jumped in,
it would be like $700.
Yeah, it would be ridiculous. Big Cloud, I want to get your opinion on this next, because You obviously you're on a lot of shows. You talk a lot of Xbox, a lot of Sony news, a lot of Nintendo stuff. In your personal opinion, how important is it for Microsoft to not only hit the ground running, but more importantly, really cement the start of the next generation with strong first-party titles that have something for everyone?
David, run. You might want to run. No, stop playing. Well, here's the thing. Microsoft, history has shown with Microsoft, right? They always go all out to start, and they kind of just lose steam as they go into the further like prolonging of the gen. Like it goes further. So I'm expecting them to blow us away with whatever they got, that's being worked on. It could be that new what was it? It's from Ninja Theory, right? So
Yes.
whatever that game was, it could be Hellblade, maybe another Hellblade. They'll show that off and it'll look great with the ray tracing. I know a lot of people talking about ray tracing, but one thing a lot of you guys need to understand, I know a lot of people talking games are gonna look amazing with ray tracing. They're gonna be at 60 frames per second. Listen, I gotta bring you back to reality. Okay, 1 second here. Ray tracing has and will always, until they master this completely, but ray tracing has always gimped performance.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were really hyped for ray tracing, then I hate to say it, you're gonna be stuck with 30 FPS on these games. And this is where a new demo was already shown. I don't know if y'all heard about the demo with PlayStation 5. That demo was running an open world game. They said it looked absolutely amazing, right? It was blowing them away. The trees, the shadow quality, and of course it was at 4K. So that particular quality of game was also using ray tracing, if I'm not mistaken, and that's at 30 frames per second. You're not going to get 60. So if you really want performance, I suggest you stop talking about ray tracing. Don't get me wrong, it's cool. It's a nice word to hype up.
It's a new tech word. That's why. Just like
word.
4K.
4K.
Yes.
It's the new 4K word. It's new 4K slang. Even though we jump from 4K to 8K, everybody's talking about 8K, and it's like, guys, stop,
8K is not coming.
We saw dudes getting the words support and native mixed up, thinking that's the same thing. I'm like, listen, it was support 8K, meaning it will work on an 8K display. It does not run at 8K. Please stop it.
Sure, an 8K picture.
Exactly. It's not happening unless you're willing to pay for it. And a lot of people get upset when you say that. I'm like, look, the truth though, if you want 8K, if you want that type of performance, at the end of the day, you're gonna have to pay for it. That's gonna reflect on you. How much you willing to pay for a next gen system before the light bulb goes off in your head and you're like, you know what? I could have bought a PC.
That's a great point.
That's the question. That's the question you always ask yourself.
Microsoft wants you out anywhere you get that.
Yeah, Microsoft really, exactly. I already told David about that. I blew David away with my Gears. But I told him, listen, Gears of War 5 is a prime example of what happens when they want to push PC. Gears of War 5 is probably one of the best ports that Microsoft personally put out for PC. So, and keep in mind, there was more texture packs they were offering. They were offering 4K texture packs. I didn't even install those, and the game looked that stunning in the review. So, you guys take it from there. You know what I'm saying? You can see it from there. It looks good. So, again, as far as what Microsoft needs to show, I don't want to see the same old. And I know people have heard this numerous times. Nobody wants to see the same old every single time. I don't want them to start off the conference with another damn Forza. I don't care about Forza. I will cringe if I see another Forza. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see a trailer for Gears. I don't want to see another trailer for hell, even another Halo. Even though Halo is going to be the first game that's out there, the first banger that they got. So hopefully that's good. And that lives up to the hype, and that actually does rekindle the love. And when I mean love, I mean rekindle the passion in general, because let's be real here, Halo has just not been the same. Just like a lot of these franchises have not been the same, and they really do need kindled. Yeah, I remember God of War was suffering from the same type of thing. It was kind of losing that
issues. Like, y'all guys gotta
stop God of War?
This. I didn't have the listen. I don't.
God of War?
I'm not a real fan of this new God of War. Okay, I'm gonna be real with you. I'm gonna be honest with you.
But wait, did you play Ascension?
Yeah, I played all of them.
You played all of them. You didn't have this feeling, especially with them going into different territories, like they were trying to throw multiplayer in God of War. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Come on, you had that feeling that God of War was kind of losing its identity, and it was kind of getting a little...
I didn't.
No, what?
You know why I didn't? Because I see the problem with the new God of War, right? The new God of War is one protagonist, Boulder, which was
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
give you that. He was
All right.
first couple of encounters, and then he gets a little repetitive in the last because, like, God, how many times do I have to snap your neck, break your back, and
Yeah,
throw
you
you
can't die.
somewhere
So they're giving him a
before
MacGuffin
you
that he
keep coming
can't die,
back with the
right?
same thing?
Right. Okay. So he has this MacGuffin that he can't die. What about these trolls? You gonna fight the same color troll? How many times you gonna fight this troll,
Yeah.
man?
Many people try to say the Valkyries are used for that because remember, like, if you fight all to the queen, the queen Valkyrie is the toughest boss in the game, and she kind of is the biggest boss in the game.
Right.
But even
She
with
wasn't
her
necessary.
as the biggest boss, it's like you have to go through all these obstacles and hurdles just to get to her. So
Right.
yeah, I do agree that she, that does get a little repetitive, especially the challenges. The challenges wasn't even that great either. Like when you're in that volcano part, those weren't
Yes.
really that.
Thank you. Right. So now that we are on the same page, the other God of Wars from the big, what was the Kraken in the beginning to
Cracking at the
going,
beginning to the
to
Titans
fighting Titans to falling into hell, whipping
inside Kronos, killing
Come on,
Kronos.
listen, Poseidon to Zeus. Listen, man, you
That still
really
looks good
have.
to this day. That Poseidon fight still looks good to this day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're talking about so much diversity in that genre. I mean, not to just jump off topic. I see it in a different manner than you see it. I'm not getting that same feeling. That Halo 5 to me was really good. Yeah, they tried something with Spartan Lock. People don't like that. People don't like the change up. They don't want onions on their fries. They don't want something new. Okay, I hear that. But that's not to say that it wasn't a very visually pleasing game. Visually, it wasn't a fun game until the end. Maybe it wasn't what you wanted, but it's what you got. People want Bungie to continue to make Halo games. Bungie wants to make something else.
Yeah,
right?
Great point.
We're at this point now where stop critiquing and start loving, right? Love what you got. I didn't say that God of War wasn't game of the year. Spider-Man to me was game of the year because Spider-Man had a little bit more for me. But still, me being a so-called Xbox guy, I'm saying that they had two of the potential game of the year games, and we are fighting over is this good or did this get repetitive? Let's switch it up. Let's bring it all back in. We can have both that can live. If they had God of War the same way, the Black God of War, because I'm just gonna be funny with that, if they would have went that way and also did a Norse mythology God of War, could you imagine what we would have got?
I don't think it works though. You think about like the over the camera. I know you're talking about like just the classic look, right? The classic mode. It won't work. It wouldn't work for like the big world and the scope that they were going for this new God of War. And remember, ironically, I think that was how it was going to look to begin with. But remember, Shuhei Yoshida gave them that. Yeah, he told him to like literally reset that. Like, one more time, please go back to the drum board. And now we have this epic climax. And you know what's even more crazy about it? The fact that what happens after you beat the game, right? And you go to the house. You know what I'm talking about? You go to the house.
Yes.
That is one of the best endings for a God of War game that I've seen. It is so epic. The music, the lighting, everything. You're like, oh my God, that's on another level. And you're gonna expect even more. Like I just want to see what else Cory Barlog does with this series.
That's why I can't have them disappear. Like, you understand? This is why I can't be purchased by an Amazon. See, these are rumors out there, guys, that y'all not hearing these rumors. If you put your ear to the streets, you will hear that anytime companies are being talked about being purchased, Sony Studios is amongst the largest. Is a reason why Boom and I and Big Cloud tell you Spider-Man can revert right back to the MCU very fast by them being purchased. And that affects everything.
Yeah.
True. That is true.
I mean, listen, it's gonna be really interesting to see exactly what happens in the next generation. Simply because we have a really good idea
Oh, dude,
what what
and they have a new way too. Like I forgot too, because no, we know these are going to be the last ones for Kratos. So
Mhm.
yes.
this is going to set up a new kind of multiverse in a world way, right? Because with his son's Loki.
All right.
So,
I
Yes.
bet you they reset that world. Once you get rid of
oh yeah.
Kratos, you are going to go down a rabbit hole
Did
that
you
you're
pay
going to
attention to
have
the
to
painting on the
reset.
wall? Did you pay attention to the painting on the wall
Yes, I
when
paid attention to
Kratos
that.
is dying? You notice Atreus spits out a snake because Atreus completes his metamorphosis. He becomes a great serpent.
Right.
Mm, wow.
So he can now shapeshift into beast.
Yeah.
Well, listen, just you keep. Again, we can listen. I loved God of War. I put 60+ hours into it. It should have been my game of the year last year, and it wasn't, only because Assassin's Creed honestly snipped it out. But I want to get into just keep with the topic regarding the launch lineup and how important it is. Jamie Moran, before I get to you, Pixelbit G drops a $5 super chat, and he says, "I feel King calling out the color swap in God of War." He says you've seen it in God of War 2 and 3 are still the best and most epic. Halo 5 issues was the story, not the combat. Yeah, the story was terrible. I very disappointed. But Jamie, listen, there are no doubts in my mind when it comes to being not only a content creator but just a fan of gaming, that Microsoft is in no way, shape, or form going to make the same mistakes that they did in 2013. Now, some people will argue and say it wasn't that bad. Well, I mean, the writing is here. It is what it is. It was bad, and even though they in 2017 when Phil was promoted, they started to change things around, right? He started to turn that ship, and he's been doing a magnificent job. With all of that said, though, how confident are you that their launch lineup is going to be as stout as the one that I made? And would you like to add anything else you think they may bring to the launch of the Scarlett?
Yeah, well, I think they have to, hit the ground running, and I think I'm confident in what they're going to do with the launch simply because of numbers. We look at the original Xbox launch, and we had one or two maybe first-party studio games. We look at the Xbox 360, we had maybe 3 or 4 first-party studio
Yeah.
games, and then you look at the Xbox One, we had one. That was Forza. That was by Turn 10. The rest were all second party. So if you look now where they have like 14 studios now as opposed to 4,
Right.
that kind of tells me that they have a bunch of games coming. Because remember, there's a game being worked on by Ninja Theory, the single player one, the AAA one. They've been on that for a while now. Because remember, Ninja Theory came out, let's just say Hellblade came out in what, 2017, something like that, and while. And obviously, we're going to have a Forza game. And, over here in the UK, that is like one of the biggest franchises.
Yes.
But other than Halo, I think they're going to have a bunch of games come out, because you remember, RPGs at launch are things we never see. And we have In Exile and Obsidian also working on other games. And I think they're going to come out with an RPG launch. Do I think it'll be Fable?
No.
Possibly not. I want it to be Fable, but I don't
we
think
all
so.
do. We all do.
It'll be one of maybe Obsidian's next game, because remember, there's like 200 people or something working at Obsidian, and there's a small team being working on the Outer Worlds. So that tells me that, well, what else are they making?
Well, they've
And
rumored,
already been
Jamie, that's a great point, because they've been rumored to be working on something else.
Mhm.
and that was a rumor that Microsoft picked them up, not because of the Outer Worlds, because of this other big RPG.
Yes.
And remember, like as King was saying, like you can buy an Xbox at launch, and you don't have to spend $100, $200, $300, $400, up to $600 on games. You can just buy the console, maybe buy a controller, and you're good to go. Because the least amount of money you spend at launch, you're probably going to have more money to spend on third-party games, which Microsoft make money on anyway. So that's what I think, because Phil's gen coming up. People like to hate on Phil all the time, but he's done a lot for the Xbox One, and this is going to be his generation from the start. And what he's done from like this generation, that tells me that he's confident. Because if Microsoft was just going to, half-assed or whatever, they wouldn't have put all this money in all these studios. They wouldn't have confirmed ray tracing or whatever, or a brand new powerful console if they weren't going to be confident. So I personally think that we're probably going to see the best launch lineup from Microsoft this next gen.
Great point. Great point.
That's me.
Well, I mean, look, here's the thing. I think that when you look at what Microsoft has done as a company in the last 18 months, if you were a fan of Xbox and were disappointed pre E3 2018, I'm right there with you. I'm not going to sit here and say that, because I look. I run an Xbox-centric, one of my other shows. If you don't know, it's the Xbox Factor podcast. And though it's a positive show, when Microsoft drops the ball, just like in sports, when your team drops the ball, you're going to yell at the TV or yell in the stands for them to pick it up and do something with it. And when Microsoft makes a mistake and Phil does something like, I've complained publicly about their marketing. I've complained about their marketing deals and and I'm not saying that Little BoomStick really got into, Phil Dominus's ear, but they heard the cries of the people, and the amount of marketing and marketing deals they made just in 2019 are astounding. They might be the most in this entire generation, just in this year, and a good chunk of 2018. So the work is, they're putting in the work, and the changes are coming. And it's I put it to this way: I'm very excited to see exactly what they bring, and I have a lot of confidence. But Zemi, I want to get your opinion on this, because you are, right as of right now, an Xbox-centric gamer. Like, you had a PlayStation 4, you got rid of it, you're considering getting it again because of certain new titles that are coming out. And that's the way gaming works. But with the list that I put together, in your opinion, how important is it for Microsoft to not only show the industry, but the most important people, their fan base, that they're serious about next generation, and give us a launch lineup that is going to wow the crowd? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super important. I mean, we have seen here in, like this generation, we've gotten quite a few first party titles. A lot of them haven't been up to par. Gears of War here recently has been a really good has been a breath of fresh air, right? But we need to but Microsoft needs to make sure to let to show the community that this isn't just a one and done, that they're going to continue with that high quality and that high level of polish with all of their first party games going forward. And I think for launch titles, I don't think that they need to release a crap ton of games all at once. I think it's really important for them to have the variety down. They need to, like King was saying, they need to have one shooter. They need to have one sport, racing game, maybe one strategy game or something like that. But I think it's really important for them to not release everything so soon. You know what I mean? They do have 15 developers. A lot of these developers are on different timelines, but I just don't think it would be in their best interest to release, let's say five games within the first 4 months or something that the Xbox releases, because I think that that's going to put them back on the rest of the year of other titles that could come out the rest of the year. For me personally, I think Forza 8 is definitely going to happen. Halo obviously is definitely going to happen as well. Those are two really, really spot on titles. I would say at most maybe one more for a launch title would be good for me, because you also have to remember, launch titles are great, but there's also going to be a lot of third party games that are going to be coming out around the same time as well.
Yeah.
And so it's best not to saturate the market. Hold on to what you have until a later date. Make sure everything's polished. Don't rush anything out. Whenever King David was saying a strategy game, what kept coming to my mind was Halo Wars 3 or something, and that's not going to happen because 343 isn't going to release two of their games.
But In Exile could release a strategy type game. You know what I'm saying? They could be working on something that's a little bit smaller, that may not be have a AAA budget behind it, but having them in there, and they are working on multiple projects that has been confirmed.
Age of Empires.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's a great
Forgot
point.
about
Age
that.
of Empires is really good. However, I mean, I don't know how well Age of Empires would really play on console. I've never played it on console. I've always
Mouse
played it on
and keyboard
PC.
support. They already have it.
Yeah, I mean that's true. That's true. But it just seems kind of niche, for a lot of people to have to plug in a mouse and keyboard to play Age of Empires, on Xbox rather than a
Don't listen to
controller.
Dave. He ain't buying no Razer keyboard and mouse.
It's actually, that Razer keyboard is a bit pricey, to be honest with you. If I catch it on sale, I'll buy it because I never really played on that. But you make a lot of good points. But Semi, I do have one other question for you. Second-party titles are what propelled the Xbox 360, in my personal opinion. They had so many good ones that were exclusive to that console. How important do you think it is, and do you think Phil, in fact, knows this and even made deals with some of the Japanese developers to bring one or two of those JRPGs or Japanese type games, to the Xbox community that has been asking for it for the launch of this console? Zemi, you there, brother? Uh-oh. Yeah, but I'm not sure. I see him making some noise. He's lighting up, but he's not actually. I don't hear him. Man, Discord is really, my God. Well, listen, I'm going to say this. King, would you like to respond to that question while we wait for Zemi to come back? Well, now I think we might have lost everybody. Yeah, this is okay. Listen, folks, I'm going to tell you this. I'm not sure what's happening, but we are almost at the 2-hour mark, and due to some serious technical issues, I'm going to stop the stream. So I want to get into the intros. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, now
We hear you now. It's getting a little better.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems going on with the OBS, and
Is it going red on? Is the stream red or something in YouTube? Is it bad? Does it say bad or good?
Well, I mean, the stream is still live, but I'm getting some skip frames. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's doing dips. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. So let me do this. Let's get everybody out of here. First of all, I want to thank everybody in the chat for being here. Almost 2-hour show. We would have won a little bit longer, but the issues just continue to plague the show. If you did get some skip frames, you missed out on the show this morning, you can watch it on the replay. The replay will play normal with no skip frames. And of course, I'm going to have, from now on, I'm going to have exactly what we're talking about, and everything's going to be timestamped. So if there's a particular topic that you want to listen to, you don't have to listen to the whole show. You can listen to topic by just going to the show notes and taking a look at the timestamps. But I do want to thank my panel for being here. Gentlemen, you guys have been awesome as always. I knew that at least two of the actually had written for 7 topics, but because these two particular Sony and Xbox topics were going to be so big, I didn't think we were going to get to it, and my hunch was correct. But King, let's get to your outro. First of all, you just dropped an incredible King of Statues with the Juggernaut, and the 1-to-1 when you're showing your hand to exactly how big this thing is unbelievable. It is probably the biggest piece in your collection, and my wife and I, we do watch all of your unboxings and stuff. Tell everyone where they can follow you on Twitter, listen to you on the ILP, and check out King of Statues.
Oh, thank you, Boom. I do appreciate it. Yeah, thing is crazy big in the hand.
Apparently all they can hear is me and you. Wait, can y'all hear King?
Y'all can hear me?
Yeah, it's like y'all hear King. Holy hell!
Yeah, sound is shaky. Yeah, this is stream. It says Scrub Nurse is saying the stream is working.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So
hopefully I can hear
catch me at Iron Lords podcast Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Eastern Standard Time. But right now, because it's football season, lordsofgaming.net, where you can see Iron Lords podcast, old shows, Iron Lord podcast. What's that? The Last Word with Lord Cognito and Ibantis, Destiny, and all types of multiplayer shooting games. Also, King of the Statues. That's where I debut a new statue every week. So far, we're 30 episodes in, and I have more than 200 statues. So trust me, I got enough to go.
No
I
room
have
for
10
that
more
nano
coming
going.
this year. Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. At the end of the year, I'm gonna give y'all a room tour. Also, I do Combat Talk with the King, the same channel, and you can catch me at King David OTW and Twitter. So I'm there. Also, you're gonna see me on Boom. Boom is my guy. So whenever he calls, I come and run. So
I definitely appreciate
You
it.
got to definitely collaborate more for sure.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, listen, King, great to have you as always. Love that you are so colorful and entertaining. You definitely speak from the heart, and you tell it like it is. And some people don't want to hear it, but you know that's life. What are you gonna do? BitCloud, I want to get to your outro. Listen, dude, you got a lot going on. Matter of fact, you have something going on later this afternoon I'd like you to talk about. And, tell everyone where they can follow you, hit you up in a DM to talk gaming, and more importantly, check out your other works, especially on your channel.
Yeah, what's going on, everybody? I hope you guys enjoyed this show. It was always a pleasure to jump on here and talk gaming with the fellas. Good to talk to King again. It's always a pleasure to talk to this fool. I'm gonna definitely hit him up after this. That's my dude right there. That's my guy. So trust me, when we talk, we talk. That's my bro right there. I can talk about anything when it comes to gaming. But you guys can find me on the my channel, which is Big Cloud Gaming. You can also find me on Twitter, the same name, and of course, you can find me later on today. 5 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be live on the very same channel. We're going to be doing the RGT podcast, which stands for Real Gamer Talk, and we have a lot of topics to go over, and it's going to be a big show. So I would definitely love to see everybody here over there. If you guys want to join us, it's going to be a big show, a lot of topics, and a lot of opinions for sure. But thank you guys again for coming through. It's always a pleasure, and thanks for having me. Have a good one.
Well, thank you. Of course, thank you for being here each and every week. Definitely appreciate it. And we'll be tuning in this afternoon to check out your new show. Jamie Moran, listen, dude, you are on the cusp of 1,000 subs. And folks, listen, if you appreciate what I do, then I think you're going to appreciate what Jamie Moran does. He's a gamer through and through, and I would really appreciate it if you're not already subscribed to his channel. Get over there, and let's help this man cross 1,000 subs. And the reason why I'm pushing the envelope here is because, folks, we the content creation community, do this out of the love for gaming and out of the love for community. And it really makes a person that is dedicated to the craft feel like they're doing right by this community when they cross that 1,000 subs. You don't understand how important it is for a content creator. So if you are subscribed to me and you want my honest opinion, I say get over to Jamie Moran's channel, The Elusive Gamer. Give this dude a sub on my recommendation, and let's help him cross the 1,000 mark. I would greatly appreciate it, and I know he would. Jamie, do me a favor. Tell everyone they can follow you on Twitter because you're very active, and more importantly, check out your channel.
Thanks, Boom. That means a lot. Today's been an awesome podcast, awesome panel. But yeah, my YouTube's The Elusive Gamer. My Twitter's over the weekend. I'll be having a positive topic. I don't want to give it away, but if you're looking forward to next gen and something that might work with next gen, you might want to watch it. But yeah, I'm close to 1,000, and you know, when if I start making money on the channel, it's all going to go back into the channel. And I want to do giveaways, upgrade equipment, and all sorts. You know, I'm doing this for the long term. So thanks.
My pleasure, and again, we're gonna help you get across there real quick. Basement Radio Arcade with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Enrique. He says PC Master Race. I have Scarlett. Great show. He already has Scarlett with his beefed up PC. He has
on his flip flops. That's what he have on.
And of course, making his
that Xbox onesie.
Yeah. I hope he doesn't have an Xbox onesie. That wouldn't be right. Zemi Games, you're gonna be joining us each and every week on the Xbox Factor podcast. I'm glad that you're gonna be there. This is your last permanent spot for the show, but of course you will be back. Tell everyone where they can follow you, but more importantly, bump up your Twitter numbers.
Yes, so I will definitely be back on the show. I just need to wait for Boom to need me again. But from now on, you guys can all check me out on the Xbox Factor podcast, which I'm super excited to be a part of that show now as well. If you guys want to, you guys can go check out my Twitter at Zimmy Games. You can also follow me on YouTube. I do Xbox tutorials, gaming news, some Let's Plays here and there. And if you want to subscribe to me on there, I would super appreciate it. And the name on there is Zimmy Games as well. Thank you so much, Boom.
No, pleasure to have you here, and I'm looking forward already to next week. So once again, I want to thank everybody in the chat for being here. We had almost 170 people watching, which might be a new record for Breakfast with Boom. I hope everyone enjoyed the topics. I'm sorry for the slight technical difficulties, but I can assure you that on the replay, everything will be smooth as butter. And of course, I want to thank everybody who were donated very generously today in the Super Chat.